the agenda for today. Uh, we will do introductions, uh, cover the purpose, do a quick overview, introduce you to our toolkit. Ayana will be doing a deeper dive into the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and of our introduce you all to our user manual for the pre-screen and application portal. The Renew NC Community Infrastructure Program is a competitive grant program that provides funding for infrastructure projects linked to Hurricane Helene's impacts or mitigation set-asides that will help impacted communities in Western North Carolina become more resilient to current and future natural hazards. Tiebacks connect activities to disaster impacts such as damage or vulnerability. Mitigation improves resiliency and reduces long-term risk to life, property, and hardship. And our goal, of course, is providing funding for infrastructure projects that will help impacted communities become more resilient to current and future natural hazards. So that's why we're here, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, and that's what we're looking to support you all in, those ends. Additionally, just overview our program. Total, we have about 193 million total for the community infrastructure program, and this round one is going to have about 30%, 55 million available for awards. Ayana, in the NOFO, will cover far more detail into some of the eligibility requirements and ranges, but just in general, award sizes that we'll be awarding 500,000 to 15 million. Local governments are the eligible applicants, and the map on the side right here kind of shows the counties that are eligible to apply for this program, and that covers the counties out west who were affected by the storm the most. And our program roadmap, many of you have already started the pre-screen process, which we kicked up as we were, getting things ramped up. We were going ahead and starting to talking with people, but this week, Monday, we opened the application phase of this process. And the application phase is going to run from this week, July 6th, until right after Labor Day, September 8th. So that's kind of the application period. Then we're going to do a review and looking to have those initial conditional awards out by the end of October. And then in October, we'll be looking to start the application round for round two. And that's going to run until early January, after the holidays, of course, because we don't want you all to be stressing out over getting the application in when you're supposed to be buying toys for kids. So we're going to stretch that out until after the holidays for you all. And that review period for round two is probably going to be a little bit longer than the time frame we have for round one, because it's going to be a bigger pot of money. We're expecting a lot more projects to review and make decisions on in that round two. Additionally, I mentioned the pre-screen started before this application period, and the pre-screen is going to stay open throughout. So please take advantage of that pre-screen, because with the pre-screen, we just will be able to provide a little bit more information to help you all prepare for the application, and it just allows us to work with you a little bit more in depth than after you submit the application. The course overview that I just read for you all, give you a quick understanding of the program requirements, eligibility areas and projects, the pre-screen, the mitigation requirements, but then also just a little bit on some of the additional things like scoring and those cross-cutting requirements. And of course, in the NOFO, you're going to get a lot more in depth. So just introducing you to it. But again, that toolkit is just a quick reference for you all to kind of get a quick understanding of the things that you will need to pay a lot of more attention to. But one of the key things about the toolkit that we have that we're definitely want folks to utilize is the resource tab. In that resource tab, you have a link to our YouTube channel. And our YouTube channel is going to have some trainings that we've done So I presume some of these sessions may be on there, but just a good reference of information that we've and content that we've been working on to get to help you all prepare and provide technical assistance for you all as you navigate through the program. Another key thing is the glossary of terms. Many of you've worked with CDBG, many of you haven't. It's a different world, different lingo from other programs. So that glossary of terms will really help us communicate in the same language so we understand what we're talking about. Because it, as we get into the weeds, it does get a little complicated, but we want to make sure folks have the tools they need to understand what's going on and follow. And lastly, we have the link to our community infrastructure program page. And that program page has a couple of key documents that we definitely want to make sure everybody has access to and everybody's using, especially the policies and procedures for our program. That's kind of what we're basing everything we do off of for you, as well as some additional resources to help you out with national objectives, some training videos, some data that you can use for your load of mod to meet the national objective. But a key resource that we just want to make sure we emphasize is the HUD exchange. As you all make the decisions for the national objectives, which is a key, very, very key component to you being eligible for the program. The HUD exchange is a website that's a treasure trove for data related to these HUD related programs, and then provide resources for you as you make your decisions and as you look to find the backup documentation you need for those decisions you make in this program. So HUD exchange is definitely something we advise all of you all to keep a close eye on, as well as following our program page. And we'll also be posting a link to our communications or our listserv, because that's going to continually put out updates because some of our documents will get updated as we move along. So we want to make sure folks are aware of it and have access to the most recent documents. All right, well, that's kind of the introduction for what we have in store for y'all. Ayana, if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next phase of this presentation, which is the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Here's the QR code. We'll give you all a chance to download it, but Ayana?
This takes us to the landing page. I'm going to go down to the program landing page, and I'm going to go down to Notice of Funding Opportunity. Click on that, and one of the features of the CI landing page, Notice of Funding Opportunity, is, well, this particular web page. We have the table of content, which is a really quick way to navigate through all of the sections, all of the information that is being offered. In all, there are 19 sections that provide valuable information to completing the application and understanding the funding opportunity. First section is the purpose. I'm not going to read this part to you. I'm sure you all are very familiar with the purpose of our program, the funding allocation and the authority, as well as the areas of proposed funding. We know it to be the HUD identified and the state identified mid areas, most impacted and distressed areas. Throughout this conversation, those two areas will be thought of as the combined mid. So when you hear reference to combined mid, we're talking about both. Scroll down a little bit more. Section 2 talks about the importance of our policy and procedure manual. As Marquise stated, These are the rules, the way that things are done in this program for us to be in compliance with HUD and for any of our subrecipients as well. The policy and procedure will be updated on a regular basis. I'm advising all of potential applicants and parties that are interested in not only our program, but any of the programs to please sign up to be on the DCR communications list and specifically the CI communications list, contact list, communications list. I believe at some point Samantha will drop that link in as well. If you have not signed up already, please do. This link will allow us to communicate any updates regarding the program, any program guidance, as well as any program outreach opportunities that are being scheduled that may be of interest to you all, as well as any trainings that come up. Going to move on. I'm going to talk about funding round allocation and fund limits. As mentioned earlier, and as in all of our printed and media documents, program policies, procedures, and action plan, this program was allocated $193.5 million, approximately $194 million in total funding. For the purposes of round one, we will be awarding up to 30%, approximately $55 million. The maximum award amount of any grant will be $15 million. The minimum amount that will be awarded is $500,000. I want to stop right here and unpack this a little bit. There's been a question in I want to say the first and second meeting that we had, and even online, where the question is, well, does this mean that the project cannot be in excess of, 15 million, or the project itself has to be at least 500,000? No, what we're saying is the unmet need. Just a reminder that CDBG-DR funding is the funding of last resort. The purpose of this fund is to meet the unmet need gap in funding in order to get a project to completion. So a project can be a total cost of $20 million. Of that total project cost, the maximum amount that we can award is $500,000. The maximum award, $15 million. The minimum award, $500,000. All right, program objectives. The overarching objective is to provide funding for recovery in all of the combined mid areas, and they are listed here. We want to note that round one will not be allowing award, or I'm not going to say allow, but in round one, Asheville will be ineligible to submit an application for projects. Well, projects within the city of Asheville will be ineligible for funding. Buncombe County will be eligible to apply for funding throughout the comprehensive county, just no projects within the city of Asheville. Other objectives of the program: restoring essential services, repair of critical infrastructure, and as Marquise said earlier, strengthening community resilience. So let's talk about our project eligibility criteria. Go down really quick. So again, must be in the combined mid. Must meet a national objective, 1 of 4, with focus and priority being given to low to moderate area benefit, as well as low and moderate clientele. Those are our priority national objectives. The use of urgent need and slum and blight are possible, but after exhausting the first two, LMA and LMC. I'm gonna flip over really quick, and I just want to share There are some very good resources on the HUD Exchange, and we can drop these links in the chat as well. These resources, we'll call them our Bible. We go to the HUD Exchange all the time in order to ensure that we are using the correct language in articulating the requirements of the program to potential applicants. So if you want to know what we're going to say, you can go right here to the HUD Exchange and you can see it for yourself. So this is one of the chapters that I thought is a very great resource. Another chapter out of the playbook is chapter 3. It discusses meeting that national objective. It does a great job of going through not only talking about meeting the national objective, but the documentation and things that we're going to be looking for because HUD is requiring that of us. So this is a great resource. So that's one. And the other is eligible activities. And there's a third one. It comes from chapter 6. It does a great job as well. And it also talks about the tieback. So great time to move right into the demonstration of a tieback to the impact of Helene being one of those eligibility requirements that we're talking about in round 1. All projects in round 1 are required to have a tieback to Helene. That tieback can be either direct or indirect. And again, that HUD Exchange site has a boatload of resources, and those 3 that I just mentioned are jewels within that trove. All projects must contain a mitigation feature that will help to likely lessen the impact of future disasters. So make sure that that is accounted for. So again, must be in the combined mid, must meet a national objective for the purpose of round 1, must demonstrate a tieback, either direct or indirect, and must contain mitigation features. So for a project to be eligible, once it's met the eligibility criteria before for a project, now the activities have to be eligible as well. Here's a list of those eligible activities that we will be looking for. And I think more importantly than what is eligible, understanding what is ineligible. So again, this is one of those areas I want to dive into and unpack. Ineligible activities, actions, duplication of benefit from other sources. Want to make sure that you are properly disclosing all funding sources so that we can do the duplication of benefits review and make sure that we are not doubling up in regards to the funding sources. So does this mean, and this question has come up, so does this mean that if we get money from somewhere else, we cannot get money from you all? No, we're always looking for the leverage of funding, but that duplication of benefits is where the same money is going towards the same scope or the same aspects of the project. So we want to ensure that that's not happening. We want to make sure that there is a tieback. And we also want to make sure, or instead of make sure, we want to stress that general government expenses are ineligible. This question has come up a lot in the scoping of projects, and it's a fine line, but when you are scoping out your projects, one of the examples that I would like to use is there's the idea of rehabbing a courthouse. Now, is a courthouse a public facility? Yes, it is. But does a courthouse 100% provide Community services, does it 50% provide community services, or does it 100% aid in general conduct of government business, or a combination thereof? CDBG-DR funds cannot pay for the conduct of general government business. Okay, so in scoping out the project, it needs to be very specific of those community services and what portion of the building will be used for government business. If that's something that you need assistance with, that's what we're here for. That's the purpose of the pre-screening, where we can sit, throw all the dice on the table, all the pieces on the table, and play Tetris, getting everything together and really beginning to understand how to pull the pieces apart and put them back together again, not only to have an eligible project, but eligible activities. And furthermore, no political activities. The next layer that I would like to unpack is that all emergency operations centers are ineligible for funding, round one or round two. An emergency operations center is completely different from an emergency shelter, which is a service to the community and to residents of the community, and it's certainly different from a resiliency hub, which also provides community services. So want to make sure that we're distinct in understanding those three very similar and oftentimes confused types of projects. But again, emergency operations centers are ineligible, community shelters are eligible, and resiliency hubs, which is a community service, is eligible, but it is not a priority in round one. All right, so in preparing to submit the application, I want to be reminded that there is a public hearing requirement. At least one of those public hearings needs to be completed prior to the submission of the application, and there will be a second public hearing requirement if the project is selected for funding at a later point in the award process. Getting into the application, this threshold criteria just goes back to qualifying the project as eligible. Again, is it an eligible applicant? Meaning, for the purposes of CI, only local governments can apply. Those local governments include government entities, and I think I flew past that one. Let me go back really quick. I flew past that right here. Eligible applicants, section 5. So local governments, which includes government entities, and when we speak of those government entities, we're talking about water and sewer authority, transit agencies, and entities thereof, their like. So want to make sure that that lead applicant is one of these eligible local government entities. Nonprofits cannot lead a community infrastructure grant application. Nonprofits can be partners, they can be collaborators, whatever you want to call them, but not the lead. So just want to stress that as I go back to this threshold piece. So that first layer that we're going to be looking at to see if this project qualifies, is it an eligible applicant? Is it located in the eligible location, one of either the HUD or the state mids, combined mid area? Is there a documented, well-documented tieback, indirect tieback to Hurricane Helene? Does the project include mitigation measures? Has the project identified and demonstrated the national objective? Has the project shown that it is financially feasible? Also, has it demonstrated readiness? Is it an eligible activity? And can it be completed in a timely manner? So that threshold review is that first phase. We go through, pass the threshold review, check, check, check. Now the application moves on to scoring and evaluation. So in scoring and evaluation, the first thing that we're looking at is the capacity of the applicant. That is worth 10 points. The capacity of the applicant is looking at prior experience with similar projects, similar funding sources. In addition, experience with CDBG or any other type of HUD or infrastructure funding, the capacity of the staff to oversee and have experience and understanding of the requirements, appropriate administrative systems. We are asking that if there are consultants, the COGS, the association, any support that will be given during the implementation and the grant management of the project, please list those entities on the application. That will help strengthen this piece of scoring. Then, of course, there's community need. How is this project going to aid and assist that LMI population within the community? How is the project going to align with local recovery plans? You know, those are the things that we're going to be looking for in this area of the project. Then the greatest number of points will come from the soundness of approach. Clear and feasible project timelines, site readiness. You know, has the land been zoned? Do you have site control of the land? Are project designs mandatory for application submission? No, but it would be nice. Reasonable cost estimates, and this is one of those points that I want to stop and unpack. We've had a lot of questions about cost estimates. I want to say that a preliminary engineering report is not required at application, but a preliminary engineering report is the gold standard in helping us assess cost reasonableness. Therefore, if a preliminary engineering report is provided as that cost estimate at application, it will receive maximum points. The other industry standards for cost estimates are architects, professional estimators, general contractors, even local staff. We will be accepting those cost estimates, but because we will have to go in and verify the reasonableness of them, and that can, you know, be off, it's not the gold standard. That will be scored a little bit differently. So I just want to make sure that everyone understands that piece. But I also want to stress that if selected and awarded, a preliminary engineering report will be required before full award. The question has come up in the other meetings. Well, if the preliminary engineering report is required before full award, does that mean that it will be reimbursable if the project is selected? And the answer to that question is yes. If the project is selected for award, there will be a period of time called preliminary award. During this preliminary award window, the state will be conducting the environmental review, and during that time, it will be the opportunity for the selected entity and project to get the PER completed, and that PER reimbursement will be allowable at full award. Okay, so leverage funding is worth 20 points, and again, CDBG-DR is the funding of last resort, which means that we are looking to see what other funding has been provided towards or sought after for the purposes of the project. The order of assistance that we typically expect to see is insurance, then FEMA, then any other federal funds going into state funding. So at the point of application, there will be the funding sources that we will be asking you to disclose. And I've seen in the pre-screen that there are quite a few projects that are asking for funds that had insurance at the time of the storm, but they did not place a claim, an insurance claim, and we will need a clear understanding of why. With the leverage of funds, if you have a FEMA claim that has been filed, you will need to provide documentation of where that claim is, either in the obligation or the determination. And then achieving results worth 10 points. And then bonus considerations and priorities. For the purpose of round one, we will be prioritizing water and sewer projects that would be considered FEMA permanent works categories D and F. These projects will be worth an additional 10 points. Parks and recreational facility projects, FEMA permanent work category G, will be worth an additional 7 points. And category C, roads and bridges, an additional 4 points. Here's another point to unpackage. Although these are our priorities, other projects can apply as long as there is a direct tie back to the storm. And then there's the scoring matrix. I'm going to go through this. This is basically providing information on what does it look like to get full points, and then what does it look like in documentation and demonstration to get fewest points. Okay. All right, so we go from the threshold review. The project is eligible to evaluating the application and scoring it according to those categories we just went through. While that's going on, we will have a duplication of benefits review where there will be a deep dive into all of the funding sources that are identified in the application. Additionally, there will be an organizational risk assessment looking at the capacity of the organization and seeing what the level of risk is by that particular organization potentially being awarded the pot of money. And also, if the cost estimate is not a PER, we will be doing a cost reasonableness determination. All right, I'm going to keep going. This is a list of the federal compliance requirements that will be needed by full award. There, again, are a slew of resources on our website in collaboration, I'm sure, with the COGS, the Association, and the School of Government. There should be templates floating around, and again, that preliminary award window will be an opportunity to get all of these things in place. I mentioned the environmental review. Let me see something really quick. I think the next section. So the application deadlines, technical assistance, pre-screening are ongoing. The deadline for application is September the 8th. Using our Renew NC Grants portal, we will not be accepting any hard copies or emails. Technical assistance will be ongoing. This is a list of all of the locations that we hit this week. Here's our email address, additional information on getting into the pre-screen portal if you haven't done so yet, and I'll get to that in a second and show you how to walk through it and even expand on the movement from pre-screen to application. But I wanted to get down to this preliminary award really quick. Preliminary award, again, is at selection and after a acknowledgement of selection is returned to us. At that point, it will trigger the environmental review. DCR will be covering the environmental review. There is a blanket cost of, I believe it's $100,000 that is being, it's either 75,000 or 100,000 that is being backed into all of the budgets to cover this. So that's not something that the project would have to worry about taking care of during that preliminary award window, but the PER would be one of those costs that you would be tracking and filing for reimbursement at full award. And then, of course, full award is where we have executed the contract, we have received authorization to use grant funds, and now we can get down to the business of construction, or at least pre-construction activities. Going back one on our website, I'm sure many of you, and hopefully all of you, have started the pre-screen. The pre-screen is not required, but it is highly recommended. This is a list and a guide to using our pre-screen resources. So this is how to start the pre-screen. This is the pre-screen user guide. And then this is the link to access the pre-screen environment. So for those of you who have started the pre-screen, we have been requiring a technical assistance conversation session to talk through the documentation and the scope of the project that you're thinking through as one of the touch points in the pre-screen process. Once that technical assistance session and conversation takes place, there's the opportunity for you all to go back, take our advice, take the resources, do some more work to your pre-screen and submit it. Once that pre-screen is submitted, we are doing a final review of it and completing a pre-screen checklist. That pre-screen checklist is then sent back to you, and your pre-screen is moved from submitted to ready for application, technical assistance, pre-screen completed. At that point in time, the application environment will open up to you. So no, there's not a need to start a new application. It will literally take you from that environment straight into it once we change the status from submitted. A lot of the data from the pre-screen environment does mirror and port over. I have a test environment. So I wanted to show you in the test environment. So you go from submitted on our end to application. And once you go to application, then that would allow the user to get into the application piece of things. And that's where the guide will come in. Okay, and where's that guide? Here's the application guide right here. Click on it really quickly. And there's a link to the portal. There's a link to registering. And then there's a list of documents that are needed as part of not only, well, that could have been submitted in the pre-screen, but are definitely required in full application. And I also want to stress that information that moves from the pre-screen environment to the application environment can be updated. So you're not married to it. You're not engaged to what you put in the pre-screen. You can update it. You can make edits to it if you move to full application. So, starting the application, this information would already be there if you've started a pre-screen. Scroll down. The majority of the legal entity information will already be there. If you started a pre-screen, you're just verifying it, updating it, confirming it, hitting submit. Project eligibility, if you've done your pre-screening, the majority of this information will be there too. There'll be a few new pieces that you have to confirm, attest to, and add some uploads, but the majority of it mirrors over, only to be confirmed and modified if needed. Very similarly with Section 3, capacity, community need. This section, the one requirement would be the public notice updating it. And project information, I believe a lot of this information mirrors over and just needs to be confirmed as well. And this is where that budget and leveraged resources come in. The budget and the leveraged resources is a little bit more in depth in this environment than it was in the pre-screen, looking for financial disclosures and a few other organizational documents here. There is an option to attach a detailed budget worksheet and any other sources that were used, but it's not mandatory. Using our budget would suffice. Achieving results. And in the achieving results section, questions G5 through G23 only apply to water and sewer projects. Then there's compliance, regulatory requirements. You're attesting to being good, following all the rules, not doing anything bad, not making us put you in timeout, and check, check, check. And then you submit. And once the application has been submitted, we will start review the end of August with the expectation of getting through the review of applications by the end of October, by the end of September, middle of October, with a notice of selection by end of October, early November. I believe our work here is done. The team is always available to answer questions, to help you. I'm going to let Marquise say it. Get out the mud. You're going
Yeah, if you get stuck, don't stay stuck. We're open to help you out. We got the pre-screen process for an official channel for feedback and communication, but if you see something, you need a quick answer, a little help with something, don't hesitate. Just reach out to us. We'll gladly work with you. When we were in person the other few days, I said this and I'll say this again. It's easier for us to help you on the front end and spend the time to get you what you need at the start than to wait on the back end and try to unravel all of that. So, don't hesitate. Reach out to us and help us out.
Well, again, thank you all for being here. If you need us, please shoot us an email, set up a meeting. I have a booking link on all of my emails that have gone out. Now be sure to pull everybody else in, and we'll even work to get one on the website across the board. So again, thank you. And we're here for you guys, and we're excited to be off and running.